As Aika's consciousness gradually returned, she found herself suspended in a hazy realm between wakefulness and dreams. Like a veil slowly lifting, the darkness that had shrouded her mind began to dissipate, replaced by a faint glimmer of awareness. Her eyelids fluttered, struggling against the weight that seemed to press down upon them. With each labored breath, she felt the heaviness begin to lift, allowing slivers of light to filter through the murky fog that clouded her thoughts. As her senses slowly reawakened, Aika became aware of a dull ache that throbbed through her body, a persistent reminder of the battle that had raged just moments before. Every movement sent waves of discomfort rippling through her limbs, but she pushed through the pain, determined to regain her bearings. With a groan, she attempted to push herself upright, her muscles protesting against the effort. The cold stone floor pressed against her skin, sending a shiver of discomfort down her spine. Slowly, tentatively, she forced her eyes open, squinting against the harsh glare of the dim light that filtered through the chamber. Shapes began to coalesce in the gloom, a twisted jumble of torn flesh and shattered bone scattered across the chamber floor. Aika's heart skipped a beat as she took in the gruesome scene before her, her mind struggling to make sense of the chaos that surrounded her. What had happened here? Where had these creatures come from, and why were they now lying lifeless at her feet? The memories of the battle remained a blur, their details obscured by the fog of her own unconsciousness. As Aika fought to piece together the events that had led her to this moment, a voice echoed through the darkness, a whisper that sent a chill down her spine. "Who are you?" it asked, its tone both familiar and foreign all at once. Aika's brow furrowed in confusion as she searched for an answer. I am Aika," she replied tentatively, her voice barely more than a whisper in the emptiness that surrounded her. But even as the words left her lips, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her identity than she knew. Memories flickered at the edge of her consciousness, tantalizing fragments of a past she couldn't quite grasp. Flashes of images invaded her mind, like a reel of memories playing in disjointed fragments. She saw herself, teeth sinking into the flesh of a twisted creature, her dagger slashing through the air in a frenzied dance of desperation. The howls and screams echoed in her ears, mingling with her own cries of pain and defiance. In the chaos of battle, she had lost control, driven by an instinctual need to survive at any cost. She tore into the monsters with savage abandon, feeling their blood slick against her skin as she fought for her life. Each strike of her dagger was a symphony of violence, a primal expression of her will to live. But amidst the chaos, there were moments of clarity, glimpses of the horror unfolding around her. She felt the monster's claws tearing into her flesh, their teeth sinking into her skin as they sought to rend her apart. She screamed out in agony, the pain searing through her body like fire. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the onslaught came to an end. The monsters lay lifeless at her feet, their twisted forms reduced to little more than mangled corpses. Aika stood amidst the carnage, her breath ragged and labored as she surveyed the destruction that lay in her wake. But the wounds remained, a painful reminder of the battle that had raged just moments before. She ran her hands over her body, feeling the dull ache that throbbed through her limbs. The wounds had stopped bleeding, but they still stung with the memory of pain. Her fingers brushed against her neck, where the monster had sunk its teeth into her flesh, paralyzing her with searing pain. But to her surprise, she found that the wound had already healed, leaving behind only faint marks where the creature's fangs had pierced her skin. Confusion gnawed at her mind as she struggled to make sense of it all. What had happened here? How had she unleashed such power, and at what cost? The answers eluded her, slipping through her fingers like grains of sand as she grappled with the truth of her own existence. "Do not be afraid," the voice murmured once more, its tone both soothing and enigmatic. Aika's heart raced at the sound of the voice, her mind reeling with questions. Who was speaking to her, and why? Was this some trick of the darkness, or was there more to this mysterious presence than met the eye? Despite her fear, Aika couldn't deny the sense of comfort that washed over her at the sound of the voice. It was as though a weight had been lifted from her shoulders, freeing her from the burden of uncertainty that had plagued her since she first awoke in this strange place. With a weary groan, Aika's legs gave way beneath her, and she collapsed back onto the ground, her muscles protesting with every movement. For a moment, she lay there, feeling utterly defeated as exhaustion threatened to consume her. The events of the past moments swirled in her mind, a confusing jumble of memories and emotions that left her feeling adrift in a sea of uncertainty. With a deep breath, Aika forced herself to push through the fog of weariness that threatened to overwhelm her. Slowly, tentatively, she shifted her weight, attempting to rise once more, but her legs refused to cooperate, trembling beneath her as she struggled to find her footing. Realizing that she lacked the strength to stand, summoning what little strength remained within her, Aika pushed herself up from the cold stone floor, her muscles protesting every inch of the way. With a weary groan, she crawled across the chamber, her movements slow and labored as she sought refuge against the far wall. Leaning heavily against the rough stone surface, Aika let out a shaky breath, her chest rising and falling in rhythm with the steady beat of her heart. The chamber was silent now, the echoes of battle replaced by an eerie stillness that hung heavy in the air. Closing her eyes, Aika allowed herself to drift into a fitful sleep, her mind awash with fragmented dreams and half-remembered memories. She saw herself standing at the threshold of a grand adventure, her heart pounding with excitement as she stepped into the unknown. In her dreams, she was no longer the timid girl from the streets, but a brave adventurer like those she had always admired from afar. She fought alongside her companions, their laughter echoing through the halls of the dungeon as they battled against the forces of darkness. But even in her dreams, there was a shadow looming on the horizon, a darkness that threatened to consume her if she dared to falter. And though fear gnawed at her heart, Aika knew that she could not turn back now. She had come too far to let her doubts hold her back. With resolve burning in her chest, Aika opened her eyes, determination shining in their hazel depths. Whatever trials lay ahead, she knew that she would face them head-on, armed with nothing but her courage and the faint glimmer of hope that still burned within her. Summoning what little resolve remained within her, Aika pushed herself upright, her muscles protesting every inch of the way. With a weary groan, she leaned against the wall for support, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she struggled to regain her strength. Despite the ache that throbbed through her body, Aika knew that she couldn't afford to linger in this place any longer. With a deep breath, she pushed herself away from the wall, her legs wobbling beneath her as she took a shaky step forward. Each movement was a battle against the exhaustion that threatened to consume her, but Aika refused to give in to despair. With every step, she felt a renewed sense of determination coursing through her veins, driving her forward into the unknown. With determination fueling her every movement, Aika cast her gaze around the chamber, her eyes lingering on the lifeless bodies of the creatures that lay strewn across the floor. Though their forms were twisted and grotesque, there was something oddly fascinating about them, a morbid curiosity that tugged at her senses. Summoning what remained of her courage, Aika approached the nearest creature, its grotesque form still oozing with the remnants of battle. With cautious determination, she drew her dagger and began to carefully slice through the creature's flesh, searching for any sign of hidden treasures within its body. The task was grisly, the stench of blood and decay thick in the air as Aika worked to extract the gem from its fleshy confines. With each careful incision, she felt a mix of revulsion and excitement, knowing that the prize she sought lay just beneath the surface. Finally, her efforts were rewarded as her blade struck something hard and angular buried within the creature's chest cavity. With a sense of cautious triumph, Aika carefully extracted the gem from its flesh, marveling at its unusual shape and sparkling brilliance. As Aika gazed upon the gem, its mesmerizing form seemed to captivate her very soul. The convergence of the two sharp, slender cones, fused seamlessly at their bases, created a silhouette that defied the constraints of ordinary perception. Each apex extended outward into a slender, tapering point, while the middle bulged with a thickness that whispered of untold power contained within. But it was the gem's surface that truly enraptured her, the way it shimmered with an iridescent sheen, catching the faint light of the chamber and transforming it into a dazzling display of vibrant hues. Waves of color danced across its facets, weaving a mesmerizing tapestry of prismatic brilliance that seemed to shift and change with every subtle movement. As Aika reached out to touch the gem, she couldn't help but marvel at its beauty. The light caught in its depths, casting a radiant glow that bathed her in its ethereal brilliance. For a moment, she felt as though she stood at the threshold of a wondrous new world, her senses ablaze with the sheer magnificence of the sight before her. The shimmering light reflected in her eyes, casting a luminous glow that illuminated her face with a radiant warmth. In that moment, Aika's heart swelled with a sense of joy and wonder, her spirit uplifted by the promise of untold riches and adventure that lay ahead. For the first time in her life, she felt a glimmer of hope, a spark of possibility that ignited her soul with newfound purpose. With the gem cradled in her hands, she knew that she held not just a valuable treasure, but the key to a future filled with endless possibilities. With a smile of pure delight, Aika carefully stowed the gem away in her pack, her heart brimming with anticipation for the adventures that awaited her. Not wanting to miss any opportunity, she swiftly moved to the other fallen creatures scattered across the chamber, each one a potential source of valuable treasure. With deft hands, she meticulously extracted the gems from the bodies of the defeated monsters, their unique shapes and iridescent hues adding to the growing bounty in her possession. Though the process was grim and unsettling, Aika remained undeterred, driven by the promise of riches that awaited her. Once she had collected the gems from all the creatures, Aika took a moment to survey her haul, marveling at the array of colors and shapes that now filled her pack. Each gem held the potential to fetch a handsome price at the guild hall, providing her with the means to embark on even greater adventures in the future. With her newfound treasures safely secured, Aika turned her attention to the task of leaving the chamber behind. With a sense of purpose driving her forward, she made her way to the chamber's exit, her steps light with anticipation for the journey that lay ahead. As she crossed the threshold into the unknown, Aika felt a surge of excitement coursing through her veins. Though the path ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty, she faced it with a newfound sense of determination and resolve. For she knew that no matter what trials awaited her, she would face them head-on, armed with the courage and determination of becoming a true adventurer.